contextualize what the key issues that are leading to this crisis of unemployment from an industry perspective are. Herbert, I'll start with you because you're closest to me.
Thank you.
On this end of the group. When you contextualize what is going wrong in industry that is allowing and enabling this kind of environment to exist, how would you describe the problem?
So thank you, but let me start by recognizing the leadership in this room and the opportunity granted to me to really be part of this discussion. The issues that obviously emanate and resulting in unemployment of graduates, for me, it's a systemic issue, and that comes with a number of issues. And obviously stemming from the kind of education and the kind of choices of careers that, in actual fact, we did not really have much information about, that's first. But also it's really around how do we begin to understand, in actual fact, the key issues that drive progress in this country. Because what we have chosen in a number of instances are the issues that are not going to drive key economic activities. And that for me, it's one of the missing points that we have not really cared to really consider deeply in order to reverse the issues of graduate unemployment.
Ncumisa, how would you contextualize the problem?
Thanks, Kathy. Good evening, everyone. So I think the main problem is the fact that we actually haven't really gone and done a root cause analysis to actually say what's causing. For example, the SMEs, I think in your opening remarks you mentioned, they play a vital role in growing the economy, in giving jobs, and so forth. But what you identify, I think in the stats essay, about 1,600 SMEs last year alone were closed. But there's no study being done. Why are they being closed? What can be done to actually assist them and identify where are the pain points that are resulting in them not growing in the economy? So we've got all these stats, but we're not actually finding the real root causes. As a result, we're just addressing the surface, but we're not going into the deeper core of the problems that we have as a country. So that's how I contextualize the problem, to say, because now these SMEs would have offered opportunities to these graduates, they're unable to. Thank you, Ken.
Thanks. Thembelani?
I think I agree with the colleagues. Good evening, everyone. I agree with the colleagues, Kathy. I think we are not producing enough opportunities as an economy to take whatever we are producing from our universities. Now, even when we produce good qualities in certain sectors of our economy, but when you go to that specific sector and you look at the numbers vis-a-vis the demand out there of young people, you find that many are struggling. Even in the financial services sector, you will find, yes, chartered accountants will say, yes, we are in shortage, and if you graduate, you will get a job tomorrow. But you look at the sector itself holistically, you will find that there are many graduates that are sitting at home, always hoping that there will be that job. And you find some of them working in the retail shops. Then they start asking the question. I mean, I was listening on, I think it was sometime last year, somebody was interviewing a young person from KZN. And this young man says, I am 29 years old. I have done everything right. I've gone to school. I have performed well. But the only jobs I've secured is work for ShopRite down the road. I'm now 29 years old and I do not see the future. I'm told that I must go and do my honors, but to what end? So we are not producing enough quality jobs to consume the same. I mean, you look at TVET colleges. I visit them quite a lot lately. You go to TVET college in this town. You look at the municipal offices up the road. You go to their website and you look at the jobs that they have advertised. There is no position that has got a minimum requirement for a student that they are producing down the road. So you are producing TVET qualifications that you do not consume. So who's going to absorb those young people? Nobody. Because you are not consuming your own products. So there is a mind shift that is needed. I don't know which level, I don't know by whom, but at some stage we need to be saying, what type of jobs are we able to create for which sectors and what are the minimum requirements? There needs to be a policy decision somewhere. I will make an example. You look at we've got enterprise development initiatives where we are saying we're supporting SMMEs, we're supporting cooperatives and that. The same cooperative, when it goes to the municipality to say, can we clean your roads? They will have to go through so many hoops because they will then have to compete with a big organization to clean their offices. So there is a need for us to take a step back to say, if we are going to be deliberate about addressing youth unemployment, how are we going to do it? You've got CIDB doing some work there, but how do we link in real terms on the ground opportunities that will create jobs so that we can consume what we produce? Thank you.
A lot of the examples that you were using were examples that speak to part of what's happening in the public sector. What's happening in the private sector?
I think one of the things that I would touch base, based on what you said, an issue around mentality needs, around how we see ourselves, I think it really needs to change. We are trapped into the space where we think that we are created to work for somebody else. We have not really moved to a point where we think that with the knowledge that I've acquired and other skills that I can acquire, coupled with some coaching, I can do something for myself in order to advance my dream and really become that SME that can actually produce more. But the biggest issue that we find, Kathy, and I must hasten to mention that, is that because of that mentality, you have an employee mentality who now is dressed up as an entrepreneur, who expects that at a certain time in the month, I'll be getting an X amount of money. And that's why you see a number of SMEs dying throughout the line, because we've really not dealt with thinking like an entrepreneur, with changing the mindset of really getting a paycheck on the 15th and the 20th. There are issues of skills as well that really needs to be addressed, and particularly for a number of SMEs. Skills like such as your financial management, understanding your market, how do you sell your particular products, and how do you close your deals? Because I've met a number of people that are not necessarily accountants or business management students, but who are in the business of either running a particular business on the sideline, but that businesses fail on the basis that there are crucial skills and they lack coaching. And you look at this room, you look at a number of people, the resources that we have at our disposal that we have failed to tap into to really get enough skills and the coaching for our own businesses. And I think it's that mindset that bothers me a lot, that not everyone is really made to work and to go and get, salary at the end of the month. How do we change that mindset to begin to start thinking like an entrepreneur, but also how do we tap into the available resources that is currently available here to make our businesses run? Also, how do we then tap into spaces of joint venturing? How do we then identify those opportunities where we can actually get into a particular environment and bid, for instance, let me use Bidvest. How do we then get to Bidvest and begin to have conversation that seeks to say, this is the contract that you have. How do I help you? Because you cannot, and by all means, begin to run your businesses as if you understand all core aspects of what you're running. We specialize in other things. And how do you then tap into those avenues? How do you then find opportunities, go out there? In actual fact, I like the word that is used mainly in business development, and it's really called the hunter. How do you begin to hunt as an SME for the opportunities that are out there in order to grow your business to its should be?
I've got a number of things that are going through my mind right now.
I like that.
Number one, when we say that perhaps the issue is a mindset issue and that people are not approaching entrepreneurship from the mindsets that we need to, look at the size of our informal economy and what's happening there. South Africans are very creative. They run those businesses on intuition. The mamas that we have, the gogos that we have on the street corners, they don't know anything about what you as CAs go to school for, pass your CTAs. And yet, they've been running those businesses for years. But we say they're informal. So we pay no attention to them. And then we expect that those that are in the informal economy must formalize, and there's a certain protocol that they must go through. But nobody bothers taking them through the journey. We're not meeting people where they are. We want them to meet us where the system is. How does that solve the problem? Because the reality is, if you go to our townships, if you go to our informal settlements, there's business happening everywhere in this country. It's just not happening in the formal sector and in a way that perhaps a Bidvest would be able to appreciate. If you say, well, you know what, I don't know much about what your requirements on paper are. I just know that I can do 1, 2, 3, 4, and I've been doing it for 10 years. And if you give me a try, I promise I will continue to do it for the next 10 years.
You're quite right, Kathy. You have what we perhaps would call the missing middle, and what we would call the unbankable, quadrant. But largely what you look at around the informal market, and it has to be a desire. That's my submission of wanting to take your business from one space to the other, because largely you find that it is a business that is hand to mouth more than the desire to really want to employ 2 or 3 or 4 people. Yes, indeed, there is an appetite to really help in terms of putting systems in that particular side. And I think the Lesaka technology is one of those that really zoomed into the unbankable market, and those people that literally they've been in business for long. But if you take it, because SMEs, again, this is one of the things that we need to be aware of. They are quite different and they fall in different quadrants themselves. And you find that even those that are new entrants are not the same as the ones that are actually at an excelling level. And there are different problems in every quadrant. Indeed, I'm of the view that a system needs to be devised to really deal with the missing middle. But mostly what I tend to see is that the missing middle is not in a quadrant that says I need to be employing 2 or 3 people, but rather what comes and what I spend on a day-to-day basis.
All right. Ncumisa?
Sorry.
Sure.
If maybe I can add on maybe your question to say, if you look in the informal sector, informal economy, if I can call it like that. So there was actually, I think, a study that was done in University of Forte, where they said, government has got a lot of initiatives for SMEs, but somehow we are still failing as SMEs. Why is that? And in that study, they actually proposed a framework that I think that speaks to your question, to say there must be, you first look at the needs of the SME. What does the SME need?
Correct.
Because now you can come with a lot of initiatives, but as I said, it's not addressing your need as an SME. So you look at, this is the needs. What then role can private sector play in those needs? What role can public sector play? Because you find that majority of the initiative or the support mainly comes from the public sector. So what role then can the public sector, private sector also play in addressing those needs? And there's then a synergy. And you are not just throwing in initiatives that are actually not addressing the problem. And then now you also need to assess it, because you can't always be just throwing initiatives. So there needs to be an assessment to say, are you making a difference in the SME? Do you see growth in the SME? Is there still gaps that needs to be addressed? So there also needs to be a constant, like we auditors, we like risk, we address the risk. And then you go back and check, has that risk been addressed? And that's what's missing with the current initiatives that we have. So we've got a lot of initiatives, a lot of support that government tries to give us as SMEs, but majority is not addressing. So even if you think of the interns in the room, so FASSET plays a very big role in that. And I mean, it's a very remarkable program that they have in supporting unemployment. But to Thembelani's point, it's a 1-year program. So once I'm done with 1 year, I'm now on the market, I want a job. Like, no, you need the minimum of 3 years. So now how do we make those initiatives be intentional in addressing unemployment? And if, for example, my thinking is you extend the 1 year, you make it maybe a 2-year or 3-year internship or program. And in that program, you actually develop the person. So you develop the person to be a fully rounded person. Also, if you think of a year, it's a very short time. There's 2 months that you're not really working, December and January. There's also about 3 months to get into it. So there's 3 months that you've lost. There's about 5 months that you've actually lost. So the actual work experience that you're getting is very limited. And then you get to the market, you are not employable because you don't have the experience, right? But now if you were to change it and make it a 3-year, and you also formalize it, so it must be structured to say, these are the competencies that you must have, well, this is what the economy needs, and they will become employable. Once they're employable, it then increases the tax base, because now you can also tax them. So then in that way, we're actually able to get revenue as a country, and the economy is increasing. Because every year there's thousands of graduates that are being produced. So if you've got a systematic way and an organized way of actually making sure that you transfer these graduates to taxpayers, they could be individual taxpayers, or they could actually be entrepreneurs as well. And to the point of, to say it's a mindset change. So in that root cause analysis, or understanding why are entrepreneurs failing, ABASA also has a role there to play, to say, what can they do to support? So they've got a business forum. What can they do to support the SMEs? Because there's a lot of people within that forum that have got the skill that can actually, I think in the paper they call it plow back. So as an SME, you're actually plowing it back, and you're actually supporting and actually developing the other SMEs, which is for the better good for the economy.
Thembelani?
I agree totally with the colleagues. I was invited to a conference 2 years ago in Cape Town. And there was this young man, 28, 29 years old, somewhere in the Eastern Cape, but now staying in Kailija in Cape Town. He presented his business. He said, I've created a platform to enable SMMEs in my township. In 2 years that I've been running my business, year 1, I made close to nothing. But year 2, the amount of business that went through my platform, where I'm now enabling umama or begade Ncumisa ispaza shop, now umama uyakwazi ukuthengisa i-airtime. Uyakwazi ukuthengisa amatikiti ebhasi. She can. I've even moved her now to one level higher. Now she can sell cell phones. She doesn't need to invest anything. All I go to her, I give her a phone. And this phone has got everything you need, ma. If somebody says, I want to buy airtime, you sell airtime. If somebody wants to buy a ticket, anything you can do is there. Within 1 year, that young man generated 15 million rand worth of business in Khayelitsha. I called him last year. I said, middle of the year. I said, how much? He says, I'm sitting on 21 million and I'm on month 6.
Sure.
And I don't know what's going to happen. I met him a few weeks ago in Cape Town. And he says, now I've moved to a level where now you can buy groceries for your mother in Khayelitsha, kule phone yam, and it gets delivered doorstep yakhe. And he says, I'm doing all of this in Khayelitsha. I haven't moved to any other township. Now, these are initiatives that we need to go out there and find them. Because when we find them, we're able to inject. Unfortunately, when I pitched this business to ECDC, Eastern Cape Development Corporation, ECDC said, the board said, we want that technology to be rolled out so that we can enable youth businesses in the Eastern Cape. Now, all of a sudden, young people can start doing this. And there's an organization called FAO. We're in a meeting with them, and they heard about this. They said, we have just trained animal health technicians, but our animal health technicians are expecting to be employed. But if we can put them on your platform, now they can become health technicians in villages in the Eastern Cape and sell their services. Now I can sit in Johannesburg and place an order, go and do maintenance of my chickens, and I don't have to be there because this platform allows us to do. So we are looking at saying, can we use, CEO says, Uberize. He says, Uberize everything. Because when you Uberize everything, you are improving access. But we are creating, now that would have had to jump into 2 taxis into town. Now I can sit on a phone and place an order and things move. We are in that stage where everybody has got a smartphone. Why can't we tap into it? So these are some of the opportunities that we can tap into and enable SMMEs to become more efficient. Those that are doing it, now you can now give these tools to young people and they can start running their own business.
All right. Thank you for those comments.